Hello everybody and welcome here tonight to the Electrical and Electronic Division event from Engineers Without Borders. Tonight's event is also available on webcast, where you can click to join the event button online accessing through Engineers Ireland website, and it'll be recorded for anyone who wants to view back later. Firstly, some housekeeping. There are no fire drills planned, so in the event of a fire or an activation of alarm, please find your way to the nearest exit in an orderly fashion. For mobile phones, can they be put on silent without vibration to show respect for our guest? Speaker tonight, that would be great. So tonight's event is by Engineers Without Borders. Engineers Without Borders is an NGO and registered charity dedicating to bridging the gap between academia, industry and NGOs to give Irish engineers and scientists opportunities to learn and to contribute to sustainable developments globally. Their mission is to partner with disadvantaged communities to improve the quality of life through education and implementation of sustainable engineering projects. This event will provide an overview of the work of Engineers Without Borders, including development, education initiatives, overseas development projects in Nepal, Philippines and Kenya, volunteering opportunities and their European Union funded project to build critical understanding and active engagement for UN Sustainable Development Goal SDG 11, with focus on land rights, disaster resilience, slum upgrading and equality. Declan Alcock is our speaker. Declan is a Director with Engineers Without Borders Ireland. He's 18 years experience in building services consultancy and sustainable building design on a wide range of educational, healthcare, commercial and residential projects. He's currently Project Director for Sustainability with Farming's Consulting Engineers and is the Director of the Irish Green Building Council. Declan has 7 years management experience in humanitarian engineering as a Director of Engineers Without Borders Ireland, including building partnerships with NGOs, industries and academics for research and project implementation in developing countries. The format tonight is Declan is going to present for about 40 minutes and we'll have a Q&A session afterwards. So without further ado, we'll introduce Declan to the stage.
Thank you. Okay, do I have to set this recording or is it already on?
No, it's up and running.
Oh, good stuff. Has anyone been to any of our conferences before, by the way? Good stuff. So I'm not repeating things you've already seen. It's always good. Just to give you an overview about Engineers Without Borders, it's not actually one organisation. There are several of them. It started in 1983 in France, and it's since moved to about 50 countries worldwide. So each of these are completely independent organisations. Some of them are based in universities. Some of them are small voluntary groups. A few, like the States and Australia, are very large companies essentially with a significant number of paid staff. We're up until this year we've been completely voluntary. The board of directors and executive committee and everyone else are all volunteers. Due to a few big, I suppose, milestones that have happened, we've actually taken on a full-time member of staff this year and opened an office. That's a few, I suppose, what's happened the last few years. We started out about 8 years ago. It was literally just a few engineers got together. We wanted to do something, weren't completely sure if we could actually make a difference or how to go about it. So we spent a while literally just sort of finding our place in the whole development aid sector, getting contacts with other organisations, learning from them, and just trying to find where we fitted into it all. Became a company in 2013. We launched our development education initiative, where there is no engineer, the year after that. A big one for us, this year we got registered as a charity. It's a fairly onerous procedure to go through, but we finally got there, opened an office and hired our first member of staff. And that came about through this EU funded project. We got funding for 3 years from the European Commission on this SDG 11 project. So for the first time really, rather than going from event to event or project to project, we can actually put in a plan over the next few years and build on that. So this is sort of what we do. There's a lot of people, really good people in different sectors like this doing excellent work, but sometimes there's a disconnect between it. Whether it's the NGOs on the ground who don't have engineering experience, you've got really good people in companies who want to get involved, you've got researchers who are doing excellent stuff, mightn't have contacts on the ground either. So we're trying to link all these up, and ultimately it's about the local community, it's not about us. The best quote I've seen about it is a guy at one of the Canadian conferences. He said, people who work overseas should learn how to shut up and listen, because there's no point going somewhere and telling people what they want or what you can do for them. You have to listen to them first and then try and use your skills to actually help them out. These are sort of our key areas that we work in. I'm going to do an overview of these. I won't get into a huge amount of detail. A big one, development education. We've done some overseas projects, volunteers placements are starting to come in now. Because we were essentially a startup, we didn't want to spread ourselves too thin, try and do a huge amount of stuff and essentially get nothing done at the end of it. So we've been building these gradually. We're now on to volunteer placements, which we're going to kick off this year, and quite a bit of research as well. So a bit of background in just the development sector. This was the Millennium Development Goals up until 2015. They were pretty straightforward, they were really good. There was 8 measurable goals, essentially, different sectors. You could concentrate on one or the other depending on where your skill set was. And each country could set their own baseline and then measure progress or not against them. So for example, in Niger, water supply, education, nutrition are very important to them. So they could set their baseline on each one, see whether they were making progress year on year and report back on that. So they're pretty good that way. Now we're on to the SDGs, and I'm not going to go into a rant about them. They are actually quite good. My colleague Liam McCartan will do the rant some other day. But there's 17 goals, 169 targets and 248 indicators. The issue with them, I suppose, the one with poverty, the goal is eliminate poverty everywhere in all its forms by 2030. Which it's noble, it's an aspiration. I don't know if it's an actual goal though. And this is how they're broken down. They apply to everyone, which cities, communities, companies, schools, whoever, everyone has to get involved in this, which is very good. They're integrated, so every goal has to be achieved and they're all interconnected. And they essentially mean a transformation in how we live on Earth to achieve them. The issue with them, if you live here, you have one idea of what sustainable development is. We've got a big problem with housing in Ireland. SDG 11, which is about sustainable cities and communities, if you look at target 11.1, it's by 2030 provided access to adequate, safe and affordable housing for everyone. That's only 12 years ago, or 12 years away. So it's very doubtful. I'd be sceptical if Ireland can achieve that goal, to be honest. If you walk around any street in Dublin, you'll see that. So how is someone like Sierra Leone going to do it? But if you look at the Human Development Index, even the discrepancy between Ireland and Sierra Leone, whether it's in health, life expectancy, education or whatever. So the fact that they're universal and they don't have that baseline anymore makes it quite difficult. But what we have done, for better or worse, is we're concentrating on areas where we feel engineers can make a huge impact on it. And then we've distilled them down even further into areas that we're going to work on. And the whole link with this really is the relationship between people, technology and environment. So I'll fly through some projects and stuff like that just to show you where we're dealing with this. Nepal, after the earthquakes in 2015, it's not straightforward getting involved in projects like this either. We wanted to, obviously, with the best intentions, start building things. We're engineers, we want to build things. The government caused a lot of issues for a lot of NGOs out there. There was a lot of delays and stuff getting done. There's a lot of barriers put up, so we got involved. We don't normally do this, aid distribution, but you can't sit at home doing nothing either. Some of us have lived in Nepal. I lived there myself for 6 months, so I had a lot of good contacts out there. So we started doing a few projects like this. The important thing is the local community. We did these through local guys who knew what was going on out there. So they came to us and said, there's a community here still living in tents. The winter is coming, they need something. So we just organised all this through them. Another one, a school in Cavray, up near Nuwakot. There's 148 students up there, and same thing, a local contact said this school, the village is essentially cut off. The kids are in a bad way. Especially after an earthquake, when infrastructure breaks down, then you have issues with sanitation, with health, with disease and things like that. So we literally, very simple project, very cheap as well. We distributed hygiene kits, again through the local community. They knew what to do out there. There was no point us spending me flying someone out to do it when they could do it themselves. So to get this to 140 odd students, cost less than a fiver per person, so it was €700 for that project. And it made a difference to them in the long run. So we hope to go back to that school and do something a bit better there, but it'll take time. This is a very important thing in Nepal as well as access to education. Some places are very remote, they're very cut off. They may not have a school. If there is a school, it could be literally 3 or 4 days walk away. So we're very interested in doing this type of project further in the future. It's essentially an e-library in a school, and it doesn't just serve the pupils, but it serves 1,200 people in the community. So we provided a solar PV system, some funding for PCs, digitised about 5,000 documents. So anyone in the area can go in there at any time and access these books. Another issue with education in Nepal is if there is a school, there's not always school books, or teachers for that matter. So we think this is a really important sort of thing to do. We'd like to set these up as much as possible. If anyone wants to get involved in these type of projects, it'd be really good. That was the opening of that particular e-library. So the whole village turned out. And they're obviously interested in education. It's just they didn't have the opportunity to do it. This is one we're doing at the moment in the Philippines. So this is a community enterprise that makes school bags. And they're sold in a shop in, I think, Lurgan and Belfast. It's 10 Foundations. It's an organisation from the north. So they came to us and they said, there's terrible power cuts out there. Essentially, the community makes school bags, get paid for them when they're sold here. So they suffer a lot with power cuts. So essentially the workshop closes down, they can't make anything, they can't earn any money. So we went to ARP, we have a partnership with ARP, and at the moment we're doing a feasibility study on renewable energy to take them completely off grid, so they don't have to worry about those power cuts. That will extend further. They're going to extend the workshops eventually, so we'll get involved in construction as well. And they have a huge problem with waste there in the village, so we want to try and implement some sort of biogas system in it as well. Ideally, we'll take them completely off grid eventually. And you can see the sort of very simple structures that they have there. This is a current one we're working on, very early stages. It's in Democratic Republic of Congo. It's a health centre. Eventually, there's going to be a clinic as well, we hope. This is with Foundation for Africa. They're a Hungarian organisation. And again, I was mentioned about the lack of engineers in the field. They got in touch with us. We know them through the European project. And they said, there's no engineers involved in their organisation. Can we do something with them? So we're going to eventually, when it gets off the ground, give them advice in like the structural advice, renewable energy, water, rainwater harvesting, waste, all that sort of stuff with it. There's a team of Hungarian architects working on it. And particularly in Congo, outside the main population centres, I suppose, access to health is appalling. And they have a huge, sub-Saharan Africa in general, have a huge prevalence of malaria and diseases like that. A nice sort of side story to this, it's the 15th anniversary of Foundation for Africa getting involved in Congo. And they originally built schools out there and supported people with their education. So this guy, Tona Sava, he was one of the students that they actually supported 15 years ago, and he recently became qualified as a doctor. So he's going to be one of the main guys in the clinic when it's built. Example from Uganda. We sent volunteers over there for a couple of years, and we're going to open up that program again. It's really about boreholes, providing clean water. We were trying to figure out a better way to actually build them. That was the whole point of the volunteer program originally. And this is another one. Partnerships with organisations are very important to us. The EPA got in touch with us last year, and it says they and some local authorities around the country were upgrading their water monitoring equipment, and it was essentially going to go to waste. So they got in touch and said, "Can you take this off? Is it any use to you?" So they collected it up. Some of it was in working condition, was perfect. Some of it wasn't. We've been working with technicians in CIT and DIT to fix what wasn't working. And we've donated some of it out to Malteser Foundation, who are working in refugee camps in the north of Uganda. That's home to about 200,000 people fleeing the civil war in South Sudan. So at the moment they're using some of that equipment to monitor water out there. And that's going to spread out to other countries as well. And this was actually the very first project we got involved in. It was a primary school on the grounds of a hospital in Uganda. And all it was, very simply, they had kids in wheelchairs that couldn't get around. So we just designed ramps and access pathways, widened doorways and stuff like that out there. So overseas projects, it's not always a massive, headline project that you'll see in, front page news. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Literally just getting someone access, widening a door, putting in a ramp or a pathway, And just to show you that we actually do stuff at home as well. By the way, we want to get involved more in projects in Ireland. So if anyone knows anyone who's doing something, let us know. This is in Dunn Street in the North Inner City. There's a lot of these spaces that are literally just going to waste. So a friend of ours, he's building a community orchard there. And it has the buy-in from the 2 local schools there as well. He's going to use it as an educational project. They'll donate any excess fruit to the local community centre for distribution and stuff like that. Again, ARP are doing a ground survey on that for us because we don't know what's literally under it. But this is a sort of project that can be done very quickly and very easily. Okay, our main thing has been development education. This started, it's about 5 years ago now, where there's no engineer. We've had no problem getting students involved in this whatsoever. It's open to undergraduates, postgraduates and professionals. We've had a few teams of professionals involved, but I'd encourage everyone, if you have any sort of an idea, we're not looking for the finished product here. We're looking for literally a concept, a poster idea. We have funding and mentors to actually bring it to reality if we think it'll work. So we started off, it goes back to the 6 teams I showed earlier on. We don't give a brief, essentially, which is one of the reasons why I think we haven't got professionals more involved. If you give students a team like that, a blank page, to go away, come up with amazing ideas. Professionals, I think it's just, if you're working for a while, just that creativity just disappears or gets worked out of you. They need a deadline, a brief, how many words does this have to be? And it just scares them if they get a blank page, they just can't deal with it. So these are the 6 teams. It's relaunching again at the moment. The team, we did it in Kenya, we did it in Nepal, got some great projects. Now we're focusing on forced migration. It's a big issue in Europe. You're always reading about every day about the Mediterranean or wherever. I'll give you an example. These are the colleges it has been in the last few years. We generally get about 500, 600 students a year on it. It's in the curriculum in DIT, Trinity and IT Sligo. So they have to do it as part of their coursework anyway. We are to our European project. We're going to expand this into Europe as well. We're in talks with a technical university in Bratislava for next year. This was Kenya the first year, Marsabit in northern Kenya. It's a very arid place, but the air is quite humid. The wind comes off the Gulf there. This was the team from DIT came up with this modified airdrop system, which essentially it brings in air at the top, as a little fan, brings it down onto the ground in a coil. It condenses, and then you can tap off drinking water. This is going to be upscaled for crop irrigation as well. We then moved to Nepal for 2 years after the earthquake. This was the 2016 winner. Again, simple. We're not looking for high-tech solutions because generally in these countries you need it to be a simple solution. If it breaks, it'll stay broken. So this is a biochar kiln. Essentially, biochar is really good for soil health. They've done a lot of testing on this, both in Ireland and in Nepal. And the recent crop testing, they've been testing it out in Bray in a polytunnel. And the recent ones, they got about a 40% increase in the amount of or the size of the crops that they got out of it. Just testing it with like the carrots, cabbages, onions, whatever. So for someone in Nepal, outside of say Kathmandu, the majority of people have a small patch to grow their own vegetables. So if someone has like literally a patch the size of this stage, if they can get 40% more out of that, it's hugely valuable to them. Because it's good for crop health or soil health as well. There are huge problems with soil erosion there. So it helps with that as well. So the guys went out to Nepal last year it was. They spent a week in a village out there, and then some of them spent another 6 weeks, and they travelled around. They made these, gave them to the villages, left the plans there, showed people how to make it, did educational workshops with kids, with schools, with whoever. The other thing about this competition is everything is open source. We have no problem with someone patenting. If they think they have this world-changing idea, they can do it, no problem. But anything that goes through this, we want people to just make that themselves. We've had people going, I gave a presentation to a company a while ago, and I was showing them this, and they go, why don't you patent that? That's not the point of it. He said, but some guy in Kathmandu could be making thousands of those and selling them. I said, that is the point of it. Let him do it. You know, that gives him income, gives the community income. It's actually out there doing what it's supposed to do. I don't care. I have a job. I don't want to know about it, you know. So people can be very precious about their ideas. And essentially, as I said, it comes back to the community. We're trying to help communities. And we can't help them if we're trying to license everything to them. Just give it to them. Let them do it themselves, you know. That's the important thing. This was last year's winner. Really good idea, LifeLid. Essentially, it's a little 3D printed device, and essentially makes chlorine by putting an electrical charge through salt and water. Again, they could be knocked out in Nepal for a few cents each, and you could have some guy set up a workshop in a village and just churn those out all day and give them to people. So that was the team went out. That's in Bandipur, which is about 3 hours drive from Kathmandu. I have a little video as well, so I'll show it to you in a second. This was the latest winner. Got to do with forced migration. It's a health kit for women in refugee camps, where safety, privacy, all those things don't really exist. Again, 3D printing. These things can be made for about €1. And it can make a huge difference to the people's lives as well. So if I can get this video to work now, I'll just show you the guys who went out with the biochar kiln.
In 2017, a team of 4 students from Dublin Institute of Technology, Evan Dowling, Daniel Morgan, Owen Cummins and Owen Bracken, won a competition titled Where There Is No Engineer, Designing for Community Resilience. Concern was looking for the best practical engineering and product development solutions to global issues. The winning project was a biochar kiln. The kiln will help sustainable agriculture by helping rural farmers and communities to create their own biochar. The competition was coordinated by DIT's Development Technology in the Community Research Group, together with Engineers Without Borders Ireland, and was supported by Concern Worldwide and Irish Aid. The team went to Nepal, where they were met by Concern Worldwide and said about the project. The first challenge was to find local materials to build the kilns locally.
First spot that we found was this manufacturing site with a couple of corrugated sheetings and some raw materials of some steel sheet. So we just spoke with the manufacturer, and they seemed that they're well able to do it. We just have to make a few alterations to our design regarding the type of thicknesses that are here and just sort of the materials, but I think it's a good result.
68% of the population of Nepal are subsistence farmers, and because biochar can improve crop yields, the kiln is a very inexpensive way to improve agricultural conditions without the need for expensive materials.
So we're just trying to get pilot holes going through the steel so that the bigger drill bit will go through it more easily. We're just having a bit of trouble trying to get the bigger drill bit through, so we're trying to work on solutions to get around it.
They worked with local fabricators and produced 2 working prototypes within a day, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, so got the prototype working, a little bit of problems with getting the lid on, a little bit too much smoke coming out, but we'll work on that tomorrow and hopefully get more of a cleaner burn and reduce the amount of smoke. So it was great to get that tested today so we can improve on it tomorrow and then the day after.
Then the team travelled to the village of Bitajor, where they met with the Village Development Committee and explained the benefits of the biochar kiln.
We are from Ireland, we are friends and we are a team that have done a project specifically for Nepal, and we're going to do a demonstration on what is biochar. So we've looked at what resources you have in your community in Nepal, in Bitajor, and it's organic material, and what you can use biochar for is as a really natural soil fertilizer to increase the growth of plants while you plant.
In the end, the team gave 2 working biochar kilns to local farmers. Now, engineers from Concern and local officials are committed to continue the work and to monitor the progress of the project. Amazingly, all of this was done in just 4 days, and the team is grateful to Concern, Paula and Previn, local government, and all of the other organisations involved.
Okay, so that was their trip out to Nepal. As I said, they've done a huge amount of work on it since. I remember F5, it didn't work. What have we got here? There you go. Engineers are not always good with technology, by the way. So this has been an absolute godsend for us. As I said, we had very little funding the first 7 years, really going from project to project and from event to event. We went in, put a submission into the European Commission along with Habitat for Humanity. There's a few other organisations involved throughout Europe as well. And we were very lucky we actually got it. So we've got funding up to the end of 2020 to work on this project. It's all about community resilience, like the student competition there. Land rights, equality, slum upgrading, migration, climate change, disaster resilience, all those sort of things. They're the partners on it. DIT are in with us, Habitat for Humanity in Ireland here as well, and there's loads of partners around Europe. So we're sort of switching focus back to Europe because of the whole migration issue as well. These, as I said, are the main teams behind it. Some partners are involved in certain aspects of it. Habitat are doing a lot with gender equality and advocacy in that area, and secure tenure, land rights. Obviously, if people don't have rights to their own land, it's the same as having access to water, access to education, all these things. You're not going to have a resilient community without all those things. And there's a huge disparity with land rights throughout the world. So our big one is SDG 11, and as I said, the goals themselves, by 2030, access for everyone to adequate, safe and affordable housing with basic services. It's only really when you drill down past the goals themselves and look at the targets and indicators that it sort of makes sense how you can achieve these things. We're concentrating a lot on post-disaster resilience, similar to the Nepal thing, slum upgrading as well, and 11C is really one where we're interested in Nepal, which is, it's really building with local materials. We had huge, I'll show you an example in a while. It was a big learning experience for us, not just dealing with different cultures on it, but perceptions of what's a safe building and perceptions of what's good. And again, you have to just deal with that when you're doing these things. This was an excellent part of it, an excellent workshop. Colin is here this evening. He did a fantastic job facilitating this. Facebook gave us a loan of their venue for the day, which is really good as well, and ROD sponsored it. And it was basically a brainstorming session, I suppose, for a day, based around Watamu in Kenya, which Colin knows a lot more about than I do. And it was also homelessness in Dublin. Watama was a fantastic place. Our new employee took this when she was over there years ago. I haven't been there myself. I heard it's amazing. It's UNESCO biosphere, but like a lot of these places, they have issues with plastic. I'm glad there are glasses here tonight. So the winning project was based on how to get rid of that plastic or repurpose it into something else that you can sell back to tourists and make them aware of it. That was the winning team there. We're going to have this, try and do it a few times a year because it's an absolutely amazing day. The whole seismic thing, our learning in Nepal was that we didn't know enough about it. You can't work in an earthquake zone without knowing a bit more about earthquakes. And we got in touch with these people. Randolph Lagenbach has been involved in practically every post-earthquake situation for the last 40 years, I'd say. So we had this event back in March. Martin Schildkamp is a long-time partner of ours. He comes over a few times a year. He's currently based in Kyoto University in Japan. He's a researcher there into seismic resistant construction. And Kublai from Arup, who works on fantastic projects as well. This is some of Randolph's examples of his work. That book, Don't Tear It Down, if you're interested in the subject, I'd highly recommend it. It's one he did for UNESCO after the Kashmir earthquakes. And it's all about preserving these old buildings. The people have a perception it's old, so it's weak, or it's not suitable for earthquakes, or whatever. You know, it has to be reinforced concrete with lots of steel. These buildings are hundreds and hundreds of years old, and many of them withstood earthquakes. And it's because of exactly how they're built. These people knew they were in an earthquake zone over the last hundreds of years, and they developed methods of construction that would make it slightly safer. Even the way, a big thing is the woodwork gone through it. It holds it. It separates walls into sections. The whole wall won't come down. A section might. So these vernacular techniques have developed over centuries by people who live in earthquake zones, and there's a huge amount can be learned from what they actually did and how they did it. So that's how we got into this whole area. Was Langtang. I lived up in Langtang for a while a number of years ago. It was actually during the recession here in Ireland. There wasn't very much going on in the way of work here. I'd always wanted to go to Nepal, so I said, here's the silver lining to the recession. I'll just stick my rucksack on and head to Nepal. So I spent about 6 months there, did a lot of climbing and hiking and just exploring places like this. Langtang it's a home to the Tamang people. They're descendants from the Tibetan Buddhists, and it has a hugely impressive culture and heritage. 600 years ago, Tibetan lamas used to come over and use this as sort of their retreat area to meditate. And when you get there, you'd know exactly why. It's just such a peaceful place. But this is what was left of it after the earthquake. That's literally the village there. And it wasn't because of the earthquake. What happened is that mountain behind it is over 7,000 meters high. It's Langtang Lirong. That was shook by the earthquake, and a glacier right at the top broke off and came down and gathered rocks on the way and everything else and just landed on the village, essentially. So the entire village was collapsed. And I was saying about cultural perceptions of what's safe. If you can see right over in the very far corner, right corner, there's one building there tucked under a ledge. It was the only reinforced concrete building in that entire village. The rest of them were all traditional stone buildings. So we got involved up there. I knew quite a few of the villagers. And we said, right, we'll see what we can do. And spent about 6 or 8 months liaising back and forth with the village committee and whatever, and trying to convince them, no, you can use all that rubble and build buildings that are actually seismic resistant. But they were looking at it and going, okay, all these stone buildings is basically rubble and debris. I see one concrete building standing, so I want a concrete house. No way around it. Now the fact is, the only reason that building survived is where it is. It's tucked under a ledge on that. So the landslide actually completely missed it. But it's perception to say, it's the only one standing, I want a concrete house, that's it. Now, if you fly a helicopter full of even bags of cement up from the valley up to there, you're talking about €1,500 to charter it before you actually pay for the cement. Whereas you could use what's already there. So it just, the point wasn't getting through, and it turns into a bit of a circus as well. This is another picture of it taken from a helicopter that was going up, so you can see that huge landslide. We actually stepped back from this whole thing because it's like what happened in Haiti. Post-earthquake, you had 1,500 organisations, big and small. Some knew what they were doing, some didn't, and they essentially get in each other's way at a certain point. I'll give you an example. We were working on, this is the traditional houses up there. Not too dissimilar from what you see in the Kashmir posters earlier on. We were working on some designs. There was an organisation, we've actually found out through social media, there was an organisation going to go up and build 150 houses in this village. And we thought, brilliant. They have funding, let them at it. So I got in touch with them. And I said, we've spent 8 months talking to the villagers. We've tried to work on designs. This is based around, there's certain cultural Buddhist ways of designing a house where they will like certain rooms and whatever. We liaised with Martin Schulkamp about the different seismic resistant principles on it. And I said, great, you're building these houses. We have all this information, research, anything we can do to help you. And I said, what seismic design are you using? And the response actually shocked me. We didn't think that was important because it was a landslide, not an earthquake. That was the first thing. And then I said, okay, it is actually important because it's in an earthquake zone. But you can have our designs. Use them if it's any use to you. And then they came back and said, but we're not engineers and we've no construction experience. So we just said we're leaving the circus. You can't stand over that. For any engineer, there's code of ethics. You can't mess with people's lives with a building. And there was, within a few months, there was 20 or 30 organisations up there all doing the same thing. So we just backed out of it. And we spent our time researching. We said, right, they know very little. We know a little bit, but we don't know enough. So we said, we'll spend, and we have spent about 3.5 years researching this, so that the next time something happens, we can make a little bit better of an informed decision. So these are the types of buildings I was talking about. You're talking about Turkey, Haiti. A lot of those gingerbread houses survived. It was actually a lot of reinforced concrete buildings that collapsed. Pakistan, places like that. And they have seismic resistant properties to them. I'd never call something earthquake proof, but they're slightly resistant anyway. And this is a project we're trying to get together at the moment. Martin Schulkamp, as I spoke about, when we started researching this, he was one of the guys we came up against. Very straightforward guy, very free with his information as well. And we searched for concrete structures. There's lots of building codes. If you look in New Zealand, anywhere, and they're excellent. You have Euro codes as well. If you get into stone rubble and stuff like that, there's a huge amount of information out there that is opinion. It might not necessarily be fact. It's hard to trace where the original document came from. Was it copied and pasted from something else? And this is literally what we came up against. So we got people like Randolph, Martin, we said they seem to know what they're talking about, so we'll get in touch with them. And the idea is to bring that high level experience to places like this. These are schools. Martin built 17 of these schools about 10, 12 years ago in Nepal. And his whole thing is get the locals involved. He trained the locals to build them. Each school costs, I think, €15,000. The locals obviously can't contribute financially to that. So what he said was, okay, you give your labour for free. The labour is worth approximately €5,000 to build a school. So the village has contributed over 30% of the cost just by doing that. And he trained them, and he made them keep doing it over and over again. And word went to the next village. I said he did about 17 of them. So it'd go to the next village, people would go, you better do it right, because that crazy Dutch guy is going to be on your back and he's going to make you do it over and over again. But these buildings are still standing. He also did this, painted the outside instructions in Nepalese, why the seismic bands were there, why things were there. He went back last year. This was the first time he'd been back in 10 years. These were the other buildings in the village, completely decimated, and that was one of his schools. So during the earthquake, the village actually moved into the school rather than sleeping in the open, because there's such faith in that it was actually going to stand and it was safe. So what we're trying to do with that, we've done some testing on its designs up in DIT, and this is what we want to do. Hopefully with the help of ARP, we're talking to them at the moment. This is a project we did with Daji Dewari in Kathmandu for UN Habitat. And the idea is, rather than in the future having people looking for that needle in the haystack or that fact or whatever, we'll start with his schools. We get it modelled properly, tested properly, get some sort of proof of why it works. We know it works, we need proof of why it works. So when someone is building an earthquake zone in the future, they can go, right, Nepal, I'm building in wherever, up the mountains in Nepal. Okay, if I use these materials, constructed in this manner, here's the proof that that works. Then that can be rolled out from rubble stone masonry, it could be bamboo, it could be confined masonry, it could be whatever, Chile, Pakistan, Turkey. And the idea is to build up that knowledge bank so people can actually go to it and find some sort of empirical data that it actually works. It's not just opinion. So if you do want to get involved, there's a few things. I said we're launching our volunteer placements properly this year. We have our own ones. It'll be Nepal and Uganda. Through this partnership, the EU project, we also have a partnership with Habitat for Humanity. So they have a whole list of countries. There are big efforts at the moment in Eastern Europe are energy retrofits rather than building houses. There's also home building. Zambia is very popular at the moment. We sent 2 people out to Zambia not too long ago. But if anyone's interested in this type of thing, definitely get in touch. This is a really one that we're trying to get professionals involved in. People think, they'd like to get involved, but they can't necessarily move to Africa for 2 years, give up the job, whatever. We're always getting queries from aid agencies out in the field who don't have engineers. We sent a guy out to Lebanon a few weeks ago. I won't name the agency, but there was a multi-million euro infrastructure project had ground to a halt. And they wanted someone who could do arbitration. There's no one out there. So he went out. It was a dispute between the main contractor and a subcontractor over the design and over payments. He went out for 5 days, sorted it all out. The project was saved, everything got paid, the project is moving again. And they paid his airfare, paid his fees, he gave them an hourly rate for it. That's sort of an extreme example in a way. A lot of this stuff is, something you'll have off the top of your head. It's information that you just know from being an engineer. So we have, on one side, we have these organisations who don't have that know-how. On the other side, we have loads of professionals who want to get involved, don't necessarily have the time, but it could be as simple as answering an email or referring someone to a building standard or whatever. It's, doesn't take a lot of time whatsoever. So that's really what it is. And if anyone is, I know everyone has to have their 35 hours CPD at the moment. You can claim up to 3 days for giving technical advice to NGOs. So if anyone is interested, that's another incentive for it. On one side, as I said, this is sort of our network of people who are sending in these queries. We get them from all sorts. And the other side, we have some companies who are getting involved at the moment. Some of this is from sponsorship, others are contributing to the knowledge network as well. This is the ARP partnership. We have a strategic partnership in Europe with them. As you'll see, there's a lot of Engineers Without Borders organisations in Europe, and ARP have quite a few office locations. So each country is linking up an office with an EWB. And they have a really good system in there for delaying time to projects like this. The one, as I said, the one in Dublin, we're doing through them. The one in the Philippines, we're doing with them as well. So there's lots of opportunities to get involved. The main goal really for us is that one, number 17, which is partnerships. If just a quick plug for some upcoming events. Our annual conference every year, it's usually during Engineers Week. This year it got snowed out, we had to cancel it. So it's on the 27th in this room here. All our events are free to attend, so just register and come along. We have a 2 days of conferences and workshops in DIT in October about resilient communities and cities. So they're both days. We're going to have a conference in the morning and then a workshop in the afternoon, so people just get together and workshop designs. We've got speakers coming from a few different locations around Europe to that. We're going to have a climate change series of lectures. That'll be a monthly series. That's starting in October, and where there is no engineer. So if anyone has any ideas or wants to get involved in that, as I said, we're not looking for a finished product. It's literally a concept poster. If we think it'll work, we'll put the effort into actually making it work and bringing it to reality. And as I said at the very beginning of this, it was a group of engineers sitting around a table who wanted to do something, and we didn't necessarily know if we could make a difference or actually how to go about it. So it's taken, here we are 8 years later, it's taken a long time to find our place in it all. So this sums it up for me anyway, but if anyone wants to get involved, give us a shout. I left brochures and stuff up there and business cards, so get in touch. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks very much, Declan.
No problem.
I'd like to open the floor to any questions.
Thanks very much for that, Declan. Very, very
Sorry, we might use the mics because we're on webcast.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Thanks very much for that. Very interesting, very inspiring stuff. Can I ask a specific question about the water monitoring in northern Uganda?
Yeah.
I ask because there's an Irish charity I'm involved in who do a lot of boreholes in Uganda. But one of the issues they have is they've been doing it for up to 25 years at this stage, and so as you can probably imagine, a lot of them aren't working the way they should. And the issue is finding out about it and finding out about it in time that they can remedy it. So I think they're actually talking to Arab to see if they can develop some sort of monitoring solution. But I don't think they're getting a lot of traction. They're a very small Irish organisation. So
What's
curious to Fields of Life?
I don't know them myself.
So just curious to hear what sort of metrics are you able to monitor? Whose technology?
Well, at the moment, that has literally just gone out there because we've spent so much time. We had like a room, literally a storeroom full of kit, and some of it was straight out of the box, perfect working order. Some of it was a bit here, a bit there, and putting it together. So they actually got involved. We have a connection with the organisation. They got involved. They got in touch with us and asked, could we send some kit out to them? So it's only gone out in the last few weeks, really. So I'd be happy to give you an update when I find out from them what they're doing. They're the ones on the ground there. I know they've been working in Uganda for years. What we are trying to do, it's one of the things CIT are helping us with actually, because a lot of this is analog stuff as well, and we're trying to get them talking to each other so that we can actually monitor the data from here. And there's a few, Deltara is, they're a Dutch company who do a lot of water projects around the world. So it's a bit of, I'm not involved in water, so it's a bit of a learning process for us as well, but the idea is literally we can monitor it from here, and then feed back the information they need.
Yeah, great. That's what they're hoping to do. I'll grab a business card and drop
Put them in touch with us, yeah. We have more of that kit. If they can put it to good use, they're welcome to it.
Do you have a need for sort of miscellaneous equipment? Because I know an awful lot of equipment and pieces of kit that are considered surplus or old-fashioned, end up in landfill in this country. Do you have a sort of a collecting strategy and a way? Have you got a way to get it out to where it needs to go?
We have a way of getting it out to where it needs to go. Yeah. We don't have a collecting strategy. It's usually, as with the EPA, they got in touch with us out of the blue, and just said they were upgrading all their analog equipment to digital, and wasn't any use to us. So we said, yeah, we'll take it, and then we tried to find out who needed it. So if there's anything that can be put to good use, we'll take it.
What kind of stuff do you need?
At the moment, it's hard to know what we actually need at the moment. It depends on the project. It really depends on the project. If we do more of those e-libraries, anything got to do with renewable energy, the issue with the Philippines project is it's very close to China. PV, all that sort of stuff is very, it's been flooded at the market from China. You can get it there for less than it costs to actually ship it out. It really depends on the project. It's a simple answer. And if, where possible, we like to actually train people to make it in their own community or in their own country, if we can. Like, if there was a specific piece of kit, I knew what it was, I could probably find a home for it, if that makes sense. That's really as clear as I could be on it at the moment, I'm afraid. Like that project out in the Congo, we will be doing, we'll be doing rainwater harvesting, dealing with wastewater, renewable energy, all that end of stuff out there. And we've ways of getting it out there as well. We're going to send some of the water monitoring equipment out to Cameroon to a project as well. So we have a courier. They charge us, but it's a reasonable rate to do a special deal for NGOs. So yeah, if there's anything of use, we can find a home for it.
Thanks very much, Declan.
No problem.
I found it certainly very valuable and inspiring inspiration. So thanks very much. We have a small token just to say thank you.
Thanks, William.
Thanks very much. So just announcement of a few upcoming events. The Engineers Ireland presidential address is on the 20th of September at 6 o'clock. For anyone who's interested, it's a pre-registered event. And the next electrical and electronic division event is on the 25th of October on energy storage, and that's open to anyone who's able to attend. So I'd just like to close tonight's event by once again thanking Declan and in the usual manner. Thanks, Declan.